All right, let's dive into the future of Google with this Investor article. It's called Flash Update, Google's Evolution in the Age of AI, Sundar Pichai's Leadership and the Future of Search. And it's all about how Google's handling this whole AI explosion, especially with Microsoft and OpenAI breathing down their necks. What's really interesting is this isn't just a search engine story. This is about how we find information in the age of AI and what Google's CEO, Sundar Pichai, is doing about it.
Yeah, the article really lays out the challenges Pichai faces. I mean, imagine running the company that basically invented modern internet search. And suddenly the whole future of search is up in the air.
Exactly. And the article gets into Pichai's background at Google, too. He worked his way up, which I think gives him some serious credibility when things get tough.
Totally. And ChatGPT is a perfect example of things getting tough for Google. Think about it. ChatGPT gives you direct answers instead of links. That could totally disrupt Google's whole ad-driven business model.
So is this the end of Google search as we know it? I mean, I use Google for everything.
Hold on, Google's pretty good at adapting. They're already incorporating AI into their search engine. But the key is, they're not trying to completely replace traditional search. They're talking about using AI to enhance it.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? How does AI-powered search actually work for the average person?
Well, imagine you're searching for gluten-free restaurants near you. Instead of just a list of links, AI could analyze websites, menus, reviews, and give you a breakdown of places with dedicated gluten-free options, or places that are consistently reviewed as safe for people with celiac disease.
That sounds pretty amazing. But what about the potential for manipulation? What about bias in search results, like that story about AI generating images of Asian Nazis and Black founding fathers? It makes you wonder who's controlling the AI, right?
It's a valid concern, and it brings up the whole issue of bias in AI systems. It's not just about controlling the AI, it's about making sure the data it learns from is diverse and unbiased. Google understands this, and they're putting a lot of emphasis on human oversight, making sure diverse teams are building these AI systems, and that they're constantly checked for bias.
So, how does Google plan to balance this powerful AI with diverse perspectives and accurate information? I mean, they practically invented the idea of linking to a variety of sources.
Right, and that's where their experience with search really matters.
Yeah.
They'll likely use AI to make those systems even better at filtering and ranking information. What's interesting is that Google's been working on the tech behind these large language models for years. You've probably heard of transformers, right?
Vaguely. It sounds kind of sci-fi, to be honest.
Well, it's the architecture behind these large language models like ChatGPT. And Google's working on its own next-gen AI models like Gemini, built on that same technology.
So it's not like Google's starting from scratch. They're building on what they already know.
Exactly. They understand search, they've been developing the AI models, and they're committed to keeping that trust they've built with users over the years.
That makes sense, but this is such a huge change. I wonder if anyone at Google is feeling a little uneasy about it all.
Well, the article mentions that Larry Page and Sergey Brin, Google's co-founders, are still very involved, especially when it comes to AI.
Ah, the wise elders stepping in. Does that mean they're worried or trying to steer things in a certain direction?
It's more about having that long-term vision. Think about it. They built Google from nothing. They get its core values, and they really see where tech is headed. Their continued involvement suggests they see AI as a natural evolution, not some kind of threat. And get this, the article says Pichai and Brand actually worked together to train some of those early large AI models.
Really? That's a cool little detail. It's easy to get lost in the technical stuff, but it's a good reminder that there are actual people behind all of this. Brilliant minds driving these advancements.
Absolutely. It reminds us that AI isn't some magical force taking over. It's a tool, and it's up to us, humans, to decide how we use it.
Speaking of tools, what other ways is Google looking to use AI beyond search?
Well, think about all the other products and services Google offers. From Gmail to Google Maps, AI could enhance almost everything they do.
So are we talking about a Google-powered AI assistant that manages my email, plans my trips, and writes my grocery list?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Google's already put AI in some of its products, and that trend's only going to continue. The takeaway here is that Google isn't just reacting to AI, they're actively shaping it. It's pretty wild to think about how this AI shift might actually affect you, like directly. Imagine you don't even have to visit websites anymore. The AI just gives you the answers, pulling from this massive web of knowledge.
Wow, that does sound amazing, but what happens to websites then?
Blogs, news sources, even those weird forum threads I find sometimes, do they all just vanish? That's a great question, and a lot of people are asking it. It's possible that AI could change how we make and consume content, yeah. But People still want that connection, that realness, those diverse voices you mentioned, remember. I don't think human-made content is going away anytime soon.
That's a relief. I was picturing this world where everything online sounds like, well, a robot wrote it.
I think it's more likely AI becomes a tool for creators, helping them research, write, even come up with new ideas. But that human element, that spark, that's got to stay.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better. But how do we ensure this power is used responsibly? We talked about bias, but what other concerns are there? Who's going to make sure this doesn't get out of hand?
You're right to bring those up. Misuse of AI is a big one, yeah. And that's where regulation and ethical guidelines come in. Governments and industry leaders, they got to work together. Set clear standards for how AI is developed and used.
So we're talking about, like, safeguards against discrimination, manipulation, the spread of fake news even.
Exactly. We have to make sure AI is used for good, not for harm. And transparency is key. Companies like Google, they have to be open about how their AI works and be held accountable if something goes wrong.
That makes sense, but this tech is moving so fast. Can regulations really keep up?
It's a challenge for sure, but one we got to face head on. We can't let this tech develop without any guardrails. We got to be proactive, not just reacting after the fact.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to how complex this AI future is. It feels like we're at the very beginning of a huge tech shift, and Google's right in the middle of it.
Absolutely, and it's not just about the tech itself. It's about how we as a society choose to use it. This conversation needs everyone at the table, not just the techies and the politicians.
So how can someone like me, who's not a tech expert, join that conversation? What can I do to help shape this AI future?
That's a great question. First step is awareness. The more you know about AI, its potential, its risks, the better you are at making smart choices about how you use it.
So things like being careful about the data I share online, questioning the info I see, maybe even demanding more transparency from the companies making this tech.
Exactly, already thinking critically about it. That's awesome. And don't underestimate just talking about this with people. Friends, family, coworkers. The more we discuss AI, the better prepared we'll be for its impact on our lives.
This has been such an eye-opening discussion. It's clear AI is going to touch every part of our lives in the years to come.
It already is in ways you might not even realize. And that influence, it's only going to grow.
So what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this? What's the most important message you want to leave them with?
I want them to understand that AI isn't some far-off, futuristic thing. It's here, now, and it's changing our world in big ways. The future of AI, it's still being written. And we all have a role in shaping it.
That's a powerful thought. It's not just about being passive users of tech. It's about actively participating and making sure it benefits all of humanity.
Exactly. AI has the potential to solve some of our biggest problems.
Yeah.
But it also comes with risks. It's up to us to guide its development, make sure it's ethical and responsible.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. I'm going to be paying much closer attention to how AI is evolving and how it affects my own life.
That's a great start. And remember, you're not alone in this. This is a conversation we all need to be having. The future of AI, it's a collective responsibility.
It's a bit overwhelming, but also pretty exciting. Who knows what the world will look like in 10, 20 years because of this technology?
It's impossible to predict the future for sure, but one thing's certain.
Yeah.
It's going to be a wild ride. And the more informed and engaged we are, the better prepared we'll be for whatever comes next.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Google's AI-powered future. Your insights have been incredibly valuable.
The pressure's all mine. I always enjoy getting into these complex and fascinating topics.
And to our listener, we hope you found this exploration insightful and thought-provoking. This is just the start of a much bigger conversation about AI and its impact on our world. You know, it's amazing to think that just typing something into a search bar could become such a complex thing so quickly.
It really is. It shows you how fast technology can change.
Yeah.
You know, things that felt like sci-fi a couple years ago are just, bam, everyday life. And it's only going to get faster.
This whole thing reminds me of when everyone started getting smartphones. It was like suddenly the entire internet was right there in your pocket. And now it feels like AI is about to be that next big change.
Totally. Like, smartphones changed how we talk to each other. And AI could change how we learn, how we work, how we even make things, you know?
So, with all that in mind, what's the one thing you hope our listeners really take away from this deep dive? What's that big message you want to leave them with about this AI future, especially for Google?
I want them to see that this isn't just a Google story. This is about all of us. AI is already changing our lives in so many ways, whether we realize it or not. And that's only going to increase. So we got to stay informed, ask questions, and help shape how this tech is used. Don't just sit back and watch, be a part of the conversation.
I like that. It's easy to feel kind of helpless with how fast things are moving. But you're right, we can't just let it happen. We got to be involved in building this future.
And AI isn't like taking over or anything. It's a tool, a really powerful tool, but we control it ultimately. We decide how it's used, what values it reflects, how it shapes the world.
This deep dive really showed how Google's trying to find that balance,
Yeah.
embracing this amazing technology, but also holding on to the things that made them great. That trust, diverse viewpoints, accurate information.
Exactly. That's a balance we all need to figure out. How do we use AI's power but protect our values, our privacy, our future? It's not an easy question, but it's one we can't ignore.
Well, this brings us to the end of our deep dive into Google's AI-powered future. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I really appreciate all your insights. You've given our listeners a lot to think about.
Happy to do it. Always enjoy digging into these topics. They're important.
And to our listeners, we hope this has been informative and got you thinking. This is just the start of a much bigger conversation about AI and its impact. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.